everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad you're here to join us. I am Doug Cothe, and here with my good friend, the doctor. And I'm the founder and principal consultant for People Smart Group, and also the founder of the Organizational Health Collective. And People Smart Group, we do consulting, helping organizations, both nonprofit, for-profit, to build healthier organizations, a healthier culture, so that they operate better from top to bottom, so they operate all on the same page and are very focused in what they're doing and getting the most out of all the resources they bring to the table. And Organizational Health Collective, quick piece on that. This is a group of those of us who do that kind of work, all getting together to become the best practitioners, the best consultants that we can be, and networking, coming together and working together in that zone. So that is me, and over to my friend Terry.
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Terry Wager, and I found Generator Coaching Consulting. I didn't find it. I actually founded it with a co-founder, and we decided that we want to actually help people manage change better and build their organizations in a healthy way. And so we fit right in with the Organizational Health Collective, and we're a little crazy sometimes, a little silly, and oftentimes very helpful. So yeah. So what are we talking about today?
That is a great question. We are talking about managing change. And how many organizations, our intro there, the leader saying, "What happened? How did this thing go south? How did we end up over here? I don't know. I just changed the thing around and all of a sudden people went nuts." How often do leaders have that sort of response where they just think they're just making a change that they've thought about for a while, and hey, we'll just shift this, we'll just change that, we'll change how we do these things or those things, and their people have sort of a meltdown, a disconnect, you name it, and they're wondering, how did that happen? What happened? I just told them we were changing.
You know, you remind me of a story that I saw actually in my area, and I'm fairly connected to the Subway restaurant. I have a couple of clients that are Subway restaurant owners, and that's a franchise. And in my area, 23 just shut down out of nowhere.
Wow. Ouch.
Because they did not manage change well. They did not manage their restaurants well. They did not know what. I'm really unclear on what happened, but it's that kind of idea that you're talking about, where one day they were operating, the next day they're like, "What happened?" And they actually, from what I heard through the grapevine, is they had their franchise agreement pulled, and they're no longer franchisees for these 23 restaurants that they were. And so it can happen overnight if you're not intentional, and you're not paying attention.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, that can happen on the level of a franchise. It can happen on the level of huge companies, and you see it a lot of times with mergers. And companies will merge, and they're bringing together two different systems and two different ways of doing things and two entirely different people groups. They put them together and they think this is just supposed to roll out, right? We got the accounting systems integrated. We got the marketing system integrated. We got all the systems integrated. We should be ready to go, right? No, wrong. Because you got to get the people integrated.
Oh, the people.
There's people involved.
Wait. Not just systems, not just the way we do it. We need people involved. That's weird.
Yeah. These are not AI bots working for you.
But what about AI? Doesn't that take care of it?
Right? Oh my gosh. And that's usually the fail, right? And a lot of times people say, "Oh, well, those two companies just didn't work together. They weren't the right fit. And it wasn't that they weren't the right fit in the sense of their systems couldn't be adjusted, things couldn't have been tweaked, and it couldn't have gone together really well. But oftentimes it's, hey, we got lost in the fact that we made the change and we just jumped into it without bringing our people along through the change. And so today, that's what we want to talk about, is what does it look like to actually bring your people along through change? And there you saw a couple quotes in the intro there by Bill Bridges, who wrote the book Transitions, and another one by Heifetz and Linsky, who wrote the book Leadership on the Line. And both of them note that change causes loss. So we've got to deal with that reality with people. Now, we're not talking about like, oh, you change the copier out for a different copier, right? And we're talking about organizational change where there's an impact on your people. And so we're not just saying, hey, we needed a new computer, so I went with a Dell instead of an HP. No, we're an Apple, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about changes that impact your people in the ways they do things, in the way life is for them in their work. That has a loss to them. And it doesn't mean that the change isn't, what's coming isn't a good thing, right, Terry?
Yeah,
But what it means is they're going to miss what's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I like the Alienware computers. They're a little bit more. You can play games better, much better.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that would make change much better for me. But yeah, I think that people get lost. And the other thing that I think that happens in, especially when change starts happening, is people get frenzied, and there's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. There's a whole lot of I don't know what to do now. There's and we just get like molasses in the beginning of change because they don't know. It's and in fact, I used to work in schools a little bit as a school, a little short stint as a school psychologist in my training. And one of the things that I noticed is kids had a real hard time changing cognitive set.
Mhm.
And so one of the reasons that they actually made kids start moving classrooms is because they'd actually get up, move to a new classroom and sit down, and it would get some energy out, but it would also get them to realize that this thing is over, this thing is starting.
Wow. Yep.
And it really makes sense to me in that idea, because we tend to not like to let go of things. We tend to like to hold on, and we tend to like to just keep doing it the same way. But if you can help people to change their cognitive set, then they can actually have some kind of ending to something to have a beginning in the next thing.
Mm.
But let's talk about, before we get into like solutions, what does it
Yep.
look like when a business is having problems with change, and
Mm.
what is really going on, and what do they do wrong?
Yeah. It's a great question. So, wherever the basket of examples, where do we want to start? Um,
Well, I started with the Subway group.
right. Right.
And I can tell you that one of the places that they had the biggest problem, and I saw this coming 8 months ago because I was in contact with them for my own journey with that group and understanding how the business works and all that. And I had heard through one of the people that worked for that particular company, now realize that all Subways are owned by Subway corporate, but then they're franchised out to all kinds of different people, and different owners own either 1, 2, or 20 or 50 or whatever. This particular group owned 23. And they had said that they went through 35 people in 2 months.
Mm.
I
Wow.
think back even when I first learned about that, I told you about it. And it's like, oh my God, think about the money that they're losing
Yeah.
in not properly training and not properly onboarding and not properly appreciating their people.
Yep.
Because, I don't care what kind of job it is. People don't go get a job to quit it.
Right. Yeah.
I've never seen anybody get a job to quit it. They
Right.
get a job to make some money and feel good about their contribution.
Yep.
So if they're getting a job there, they actually want it. And
Right.
while there's going to be some kind of attrition, and some people go, I got a job and then I want to get a better one and leave quickly. Most
Right.
people leave quickly because the way they either felt at the job, the way they were treated, the way that they got confused.
Yep.
There's a lot of reasons why they leave. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because when we start looking at transition and we start looking at change, when people start to get scared and frustrated and feel like they're stuck, one of the first things they do is run.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Yeah. And then it's interesting too. You get transitions between. So one of the big changes I worked with the company through is they had one of the larger companies had people in the field in the oil industry, people back at the headquarters, and they were deciding to combine the the group of people that were working in this area out in the field back to the headquarters. And so now you're merging two different groups that will operate very, very differently, because the ones out in the field, they work based on field operations. The ones back at the headquarters, well, they're used to the office environment. They're used to what's going on there. And so we were pulling these two teams to push together. And some of the things that came up, there were some elephants in the room that hadn't been spoken about how the field felt about the office and how the office felt about the field.
Yeah.
The people in the field felt like the redheaded stepchild. They felt like they were, you're just out there. You're not like us. And so there was this division that was needed to be addressed. You're going to combine this group of people, and yet there are obstacles between that combination. And how are you going to actually walk them through that? And then you've got the people in the field actually had relationships with all the people out in the field. But now you want to pull them back in, and you want to put them in the headquarters where they don't really know the people other than, hey, I interact with you over Zoom, or I interact with you when I come to the office, but not very often. Those are my people, not here. And now all of a sudden, those are no longer my people, but now I'm here. And so there's a loss of, hey, you know what? All of my people, all of the people I interacted with on a daily basis, I'm losing because you're moving where I'm situated. And you're moving me back into the headquarters. And I don't like that. I like my people. And frankly, between, oil industry, you go between the executive offices and you go between the field, you're in many ways going from more white collarish to blue collarish. And the difference there, and folks are like, hey, this is a whole different world from that world. And I've got to deal with the transition of that. And so there's a lot to work through that's not just, hey, we got you a new desk, we got you a new office, we got your computer, we got your phone, you're good to go, right? I mean, we paid for your transition. We paid you to move from X to Y, and you're in a new house, you're good, right? Everything's good.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because as you were talking about that group, it brought me back to the group that I was working with, the engineers last year, that we may be doing some more stuff with this year. And they opened a factory that was more hands-on, make the material, where the building that I was working with them in was more of an engineering kind of, there's some factory stuff, but it's much more about prototype and engineering and putting it together and that type of thing. And when they open the factory, they're going, okay, some of these people need to go over there and work. And they felt like they got kicked out of their house.
Oof. Yep.
It's like, oh, I'm the bad kid that got kicked out. And so there is that loss, and there's like, okay, now what does this mean to me? They don't love me anymore. They don't care about me. And this isn't like conscious. It's just, it comes out in resentful freaking feeling of betrayal and feeling of inferiority, because I'm the one that got kicked over there. And then if they say, we need you to go over there because you're awesome, now I'm getting a line of crap too. Because I believe that this is where all the cool people are, and now I'm in I'm in the barn.
Get kicked out of the cool people group. I got voted off the island.
So that's and that's, when we went in, we were working on rapid team building and adaptive communication with this group, and that's some of the stuff that came out in our sessions, because we were doing trainings on how to actually build teams quickly. And they're like, well, what happens when, and this was, out of left field, because I didn't know about this, but they're like, well, what happens when they move you to a new factory, when you weren't in a factory in the first place?
Wow.
And now you have a whole new team, and it's not anybody that does what you do.
Wow. Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like transition to me.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like there's stuff to be worked through.
Yeah. And it sounds like there needs to be some communication. And one of the things that we talk about, Christine and I talk about with adaptive communication, is the first person I have to communicate with is with myself, and be honest about the loss, be honest about feeling betrayed, be honest about feeling like the rules got changed and I don't know how to do what I was doing. I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling, apart from now. And being able to identify those emotions is where it starts to be able to transition, because if you're not identifying those emotions, you're fighting against them the whole time.
Right. Yep.
And
Yep.
so,
And then as a leader, you begin to wonder, well, why did this person leave the company? I don't understand. I mean, we had a great situation here.
they weren't committed.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
must be it, because they left. It's
Yeah,
nothing I
yeah,
did.
they get it. Right, right. Yeah, and then that happens all the time, right? Like if you think of my example in the oil industry, I mean, the person's getting brought in and moving away from all their favorite people. Well, all of a sudden they take another job with another company that keeps them out at the you know in the field. Well, there should be you should see the lights go off and go, oh, whoa, hold on. We didn't help them with the transition from, hey, you're moving from the field into the main office here. Why are we doing that? Why is that worthwhile? How is that a help to you? How's it a help to actually to your people you consider your people out there in the field? Why
Right.
would we walk through those things? Those kinds of questions that never really get answered because we treat a change as a technical change as opposed to an adaptive change, something that's more systemic and something that really needs pushed through and worked through rather than just, hey, you know what? We switched it. You're good. Come home.
Yeah. What's also kind of the idea that popped in my head is, that person, if they're being moved in, that person now goes, okay, everything's changed.
Yeah.
Is this the change I want, or do I want a
Right.
bigger change for me in a different environment, in a different company, in different benefits, in different situation? And
Yeah.
how big a change, because I don't want to go and change and get used to this thing and then I have to change again. So maybe this is the
Mhm.
perfect opportunity to go find a better deal.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. By changing them, you've now initiated that. Okay. Now, well, is this the best option? Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing that companies often don't think through, right, is, oh, I'm going to move you from the field into the main office. So, we'll give you help on moving, all that stuff. Well, guess what? My wife has a really great job out there where we live, and I don't want to move.
Right.
Well, hold on. There's factors other than the company that
Right.
matter, whether you would move.
It's funny because you just triggered a thought of, I used to have Comcast, and I'm pretty sure everybody can relate to this idea. I didn't like it, and I don't like it. And I'm sure there's some people that like Comcast, or some people at least believe it's the lesser of whatever five evils. Um,
Yeah.
but I didn't really like them, and they felt like they were nickel and diming me, and they sent me a message one day that they're upping my bill by $10 more,
Oh
and
gosh.
they realized that they needed to do this. And so it gave me that was the transition kind of thing, is like, look, I really don't like you guys anyway, and now that you're changing my bill, oh, you know what it was, is they changed my bill, but they also told me that, they changed my data plan, and I had to
Okay.
pay the extra $10 for unlimited. And I thought I was already unlimited because, well, I
Mm.
was. But
Yep.
their marketing and their way they're doing their sales, they changed the thing. They're like, we're gonna have to charge you $10 more for unlimited. So I was like, you know what? I think that this is a perfect opportunity to really look at what I'm spending here and
Yeah.
see if this is the option I want to stay with. And I
Yeah.
ultimately went with a fiber optic company instead of the cable company. And I haven't looked back, and I've been very, very happy with my decision that they helped me make.
Mm. Exactly. Thank you for pushing me out the door.
Yeah, and like, oh, obviously, this is not a good idea for me anymore. And
Yeah.
I think that happens with businesses too, if they don't prepare their people for change, and they
Yeah.
don't actually pay attention to what they're really doing to their people. Because the
Yeah.
one thing that everybody experiences emotionally when change happens is, what does this mean for me entirely? And so it's existentially, when something changes, and something big enough changes existentially, we start to examine our whole life. And I mean, we all
Mm.
saw that in 2020.
Right.
Like,
Oh
everybody
yeah.
changed, and the great friggin' people quitting,
Right.
whatever they called it, I can't remember,
Resignation. Yeah.
resignation, was for me much more about people really examining their lives and what they're really wanting, rather than just having enough of this bullshit. Oops. But it's really, people started to look inward and take stock of what's important to them. And we tend to all, as human not really pay attention to that until something like that comes.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? I mean, what?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the word that was coming to my mind was discomfort pushes people toward change, right? And
Yeah,
so when you introduce change, you're automatically introducing discomfort. And so
yeah,
now that person's got to start analyzing things. They got to start thinking about things. They're like, hey, you know what? I don't like my boss anyway. I'm out of here. Or I don't like what I'm doing anyway. I'm out of here. You introduce discomfort the second you introduce change. And so all of
absolutely.
a sudden, there are people going, well, you know what? Since I can make the change you want to make in my life, or I can make a change I want to make in my life.
Right. Who's going to be in charge of my change?
Right. And in our world of personal autonomy, I want to be in charge of my life, not you. So I'm going to go do my thing.
Right. And in fact, sometimes even I want to be in charge of my change, even to my detriment. At
Yep.
least I
Oh
made
yeah.
the decision.
Yep.
I actually have a model that I share with people about change, and it's like the idea of the comfort zone. We never grow and we don't do anything, and then
Mm,
too far outside of the comfort zone, we're in terror and way out
mm,
here. But
yep.
then in between the terror zone and the comfort zone is this fringe of fear. And all
Mm,
change happens in the fringe of fear. And what we got to be careful of is we don't actually push them into terror, whether,
yep.
when in those situations, if they're comfortable, they don't want change, we push them into the fringe of fear, they'll
Mm,
go through the change and they'll be vocal about it and talk about what they're looking for, and we can have a good conversation. But if we push them into terror, they're gone,
yeah.
or they shut
Yep.
down completely. I mean,
Right. Right. Yeah. I was thinking through the lens of like all change comes with fear and excitement, right? And it's our job as leaders to help them both through both of those. Because the excitement could be unrealistic, even, right? This is going to be the greatest thing that ever happened in my life, and then it's not, and then they leave. Or this is going to be horrific, and it's like, well, how am I going to help you walk through the value of the change, the how that impacts you, how what's good about it and what's not good about it, what's going to be hard, and how do we walk that together? And the better I do that, the better chance I have of this being a successful change and a successful transition.
absolutely.
And I mean, we both talked about, well, we haven't talked on here about, but we talk plenty about in our circles, Bridges' model of transitions. And I like it in the sense of it says, hey, look, here's an ending, here's a neutral zone, and then here's a new beginning. And what most of us will do is, well, we ended, but we don't even do anything to really help people through the end. We're just like, okay, that's over. Now we're going to here, and everyone's supposed to get excited about the new beginning. And that point again of both Heifetz and Linsky, of Bill Bridges, of so many others is there's a loss. Will you work them through the loss? Will you
Right.
help them to deal with the pain of what they're not having? It's funny in business, people are real quick to talk about opportunity costs, right? But in relationships, they don't talk about them.
Right.
It's like, well, guess what? Every decision has a relational opportunity cost too, an emotional opportunity cost, not just a business opportunity cost. And
Absolutely.
so when you change things, I lose something and I gain something. And so what I'm getting has to be worth it for me to go through the loss.
The
And you got to help them see that and help them go
absolutely.
through that.
Absolutely. The other interesting thing as you're saying that is, um, we have this so robotic idea of business not having emotion in it that people shouldn't be
Right.
upset about
Human.
what they lost. And mourning the loss is dumb. Why would we want to do that?
Right.
Just
Right.
pull up your pants and let's go. Bootstraps are all on, and
Right.
we're gonna make sure that we just move forward with this. But the reality is we have to be able to put it to rest. And I don't necessarily really talk about that too much, but with Bridges' change model, I don't talk about it because mourning the loss of whatever you lost, or mourning the loss, and this is another thing I did when I worked with the attachment suffered kids, which is just a whole lifetime of transition, and they don't do it well. But mourning the loss of the imagined or hoped for future that you didn't get is also
Yeah.
something that has to be mourned. And so being excited for stuff that's what you were talking about, is like getting really excited for something that didn't happen. We got to mourn the
Yep.
loss of that too,
Yeah.
and put it into proper context emotionally for the things that went away that we really liked and the things that went away that we never got that we hoped for. All of those need to be mourned. All of those need to be realized that, hey, I have some serious disappointments, just like potholes right in front of me, and I got to actually map those out so I don't fall in and break an ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if we do that, we're going to be much better off as we move into the neutral zone of
Yeah.
change, when we can honor the fact that there are these losses and there are these endings that we
Mm-hmm.
need to identify our emotions around.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. I like that. Well, an example outside of the business world, but you get to the end of high school, you get to the end of college, you get to the end of grad school. What do? You have a graduation. So you can celebrate the ending of something with some honor to it, with some dignity to it. And you get your chance to say your goodbyes to all these people you're probably never going to see in the rest of your life for most of them. Right? I mean, hello, this is it. So we're going to have a graduation party. So I can see you for one last time. And we can say, good luck at college, good luck in life, good luck at your career across the country. I'm probably not going to see you much. Maybe we'll keep in touch on Facebook. I mean, in honesty, that transition point is really, really important for those people to have that closure, that ending point. It's not just a, hey, we're handing out diplomas, because guess what? They could send you it in the mail. They could hand it to you on your last day of school on the way out. They don't have to have a big celebration and spend a lot of money to have a graduation.
Yeah.
But it's vitally important for us to make the transition, is to put an end on something so that we can go to the new thing. And the end usually what points to the celebration of, hey, we're heading into this new stage. Hey, we're going off to this college or that college or the other college, and there's new and exciting stuff coming. So let's close the door on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that also goes to funerals and saying goodbye to those people and honoring who they were, honoring who we were with them.
Yep.
And so many people, I mean, you've seen it too, just really get stuck and not be able to move on from the loss of a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
they live in this perpetual thinking about them or being around them. And I'm not saying that you don't think about people, but they don't have a way to actually integrate what that relationship was into themselves to be able to move on further after that other person passes away. And I mean, I live right down the street from a cemetery, and there's some cultural stuff with that stuff, of course, but people showing up daily at the cemetery, to me, as I see that, is like, that seems like you got stuck in the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
you don't know how to transition into making your life more than just what that loss was.
Yep. Yep.
And if we and that's losing somebody. But when we go, wait a minute, okay, how do I actually honor them by moving forward with my life?
Yep.
As a way to tribute to them or something like that, that we can actually move forward rather than just stay stuck in some kind of past. And I think that is really a big piece for a lot of people, is getting stuck in, I don't know what to do now. So I'm
Yep.
just going to stay
Yep.
here.
Right.
I'm going to pretend that nothing has changed. I'm going to just kind of go on as usual. And it's like, what's going on there?
Right. Right. Yep. Yep. And if that's your business and not your personal life with the loss of a person, you're going to lose productivity. You're going to lose excitement for the work. You're going to lose, I mean, it's not going to go well. Your interaction with other team members who have moved to the next stage, that's going to be different and weird and awkward. And so it gets really hard. And that's a great introduction, I think, to that next stage we talk about, it, which is the neutral zone, is we've got to be able to push into that and begin to get our heads, our minds, our emotions wrapped around the change, wrapped around what is this thing? What does it look like? What is my life going to look like in your example of life without this person here in the day-to-day reality of my life? Whether you whatever your spiritual views are of, hey, I'm going to see him again. Well, guess what? That's dismissive if you only do that. But what the reality is, you're not going to see him tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And so the things that you enjoy with them are not going to be happening. And the same with transitions in a company. If all of a sudden we merge two companies and guess what? The executive team of this team and the executive team of this team, half are now executives. Well, guess who I'm not going to be hanging out with? The other executives that used to be on my executive team. That's a huge change. That's a huge transition. So I've got to get my mind around what is my life going to look like in relationship to those people who are no longer on the executive team? What is my life going to look like in relationship with this new group? What is my relationship? What is the team going to look like? Is it going to be like our old team? Is it going to be like their team? Is it going to be, no, it's probably going to be totally different. Okay, what does that look like? Those are the spaces we got to be able to give people time to hang out in so that they can then turn to the next stage and embrace the change and run with it.
Right.
And otherwise they're not gonna.
Right.
They're gonna fall into a system rather than choose a system. They're gonna fall into a response rather than go into a response knowingly and actively.
Right. And in my model of the person, they're not going from a balanced, intentional place where they're showing up to be of service, and they're showing up faith that they're going to have a role, they're going to be impactful, they're going to be seen, and they're going to be an important part of something. They could fall into victim stance and victim emotional stance where they're, oh, I guess, well, now I've just got to roll with it and let it happen and settle for whatever I get, and we'll find out, and hopefully it's going to be good. Like, are you taking initiative? Do you believe in yourself enough that you're going to be okay with this? And if you're in this transition and moving into this new company structure, that you're going to be able to contribute, or maybe for the person, the specific person, maybe this is your time, that it's time to make a change in your life. Mm-hmm. Now, for the leadership, they got to also ask the question, who is going to be going with us in this transition and how they're going to go. And that can get dicey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And far too often that gets abdicated, right? I mean, how many times have you seen, oh, we're going to keep 2 chief marketing officers and 2, it's like, really? No, that doesn't work. Well, eventually one of them will quit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's you
want to pick the best option, huh?
You go in, one come out. Yeah.
No, you got to have the hard decisions and the hard questions and give the hard news. And even give a good vision for why it exists, right? And that's, again, that neutral zone is helping your people get it. So like in my example earlier of the oil company, it's those people who are moving back into the main office, it's helping them with like, okay, let's take some time and do some team relations, team building stuff in that neutral zone so that when we get to the point where we're ready to run full speed, we know, okay, this is what my situation looks like. These are the people I now work with. This is why they put us together, because I bring some the intelligence that came from the field and understands out there better. And they brought a set of intelligence that understands how the office operates. And when you put us together, we now got the whole picture and the whole package. And this brings things together in a way that's great, instead of going, oh, great, I got to go work with them. I don't even like them, and I don't know. And I'm going to show up for my first day, and all I'm going to be around is all them. No, thank you. I don't want to be a them. I want to be this group over here, my original people. And so we've got to be able to help them get their mind around, get that grasp on, hey, these are the people. I can actually, they bleed. When they cut them, they bleed red. They breathe oxygen. Wow. I thought that was only out in the field. Yeah, I mean, just those realities where we're human to one another, where we build trust, where we build relationship, and we have those opportunities to say, okay, I can do this. I can be a part of this.
And I use another model when I'm looking at building teams called the Tuckman model. And the forming, storming, norming, and we call it high performing. We just kind of skip performing, but we go high performing because, well, it sounds better. But I think that really what goes on whenever you have this transition is we move back into that storming
Mm,
as we're reforming, because well, and it is a forming, but storm hits really quick because you know crap hit the fan, so to speak. Is like we have a totally new uh, landscape here. I couldn't think of the word.
mhm.
Blueprint? No, that's not it. But we have a totally new landscape that both this thing was going this way and this thing was going this way, and now we're supposed to do something in the middle or something completely different, and it's completely different, and we don't know what we're doing now. So we have to reform.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now we have the two different groups coming together in that merging kind of way.
Yep.
Well, Gladiator School, we're gonna see who actually survives it, and if the company isn't intentional about really identifying their vision and their values as they come together. And we saw this at the place that I was talking about that had the second place, because a parent company bought this smaller and I say smaller, but it's freaking huge, but smaller by standards. Um, the parent company was German or something like that, and they bought this other company in the Portland area that I live in, and they had two different visions, they had two different missions,
Mm,
they had two different ideas, and you can tell that the people in where I live are kind of in that limbo looking for, well, our mission and our vision was this and our values were this, but now we're not sure what theirs were. So we're trying to live out ours under theirs. And
yep.
are we doing it right?
Right.
And that's honestly the flavor of kind of what I got. And that there's the, are we doing it right? And then this is what we're doing because we got to earn money and we got to
Yep.
earn contracts and we got to continue business as usual. But are we doing it right?
Hmm.
Is
Yeah.
there, do I want to be here?
Yep.
Maybe there's something else.
And then
So
can I ask that question out loud?
they don't. They don't.
Can I ask if I'm doing it right to anyone?
Right. No, and
Am
they
I
don't.
safe to do that? Because I don't know these people.
Yeah. This type of thing came out in our training on rapid team building. And it's funny how questions like that, can I say this out loud, come out, well, that's not going to work.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
More declarative, like we know that's not going to work. They don't
Right.
care about us. Well, wait a minute.
Right.
Do they? Do they not?
Right.
Really? They
The
don't care.
founder sold us out, and this new company doesn't care. They're just a bunch of corporate greedy mongers that wanted our business.
Right, right. And it's like, well, wait a minute, is that true? Or
Right.
the other one that I actually heard was those people sold out. They
Mm,
said they were for us. They said they were this. They said their vision was this. They said that this is how we behave.
yep.
And then they sold out.
Yeah.
And we feel betrayed by that company that sold.
Yep.
We don't know
Oh,
why they sold. I mean, they could say why they sold, but that's here's
right.
the marketing reason they sold. Here's the news clip of why they sold. But we don't really know the inner workings of the people who own the company that were stressed out or that they were done because they were older or whatever the reasons were. But
Right.
we don't need to condemn the people that sold, and we don't need to condemn the new people that are coming in because we're frightened about where we fit.
Right.
But that's what happens a lot is people get frightened and then they start condemning the people who set it up, that made it happen, condemn the
Yep.
people that are coming in, and now I'm mad at them and I'm mad at them, and in between in that neutral zone, it ain't so neutral.
No. No. Nothing about it is neutral.
Yeah.
Surrounded by enemies.
And so how do they move through that neutral zone that's not so neutral? It might call the battle zone
Yeah.
into the next thing. What do they do?
Yeah. And in so many ways, that's revisiting some of the basics, right? That's coming back together to why do we exist? Why are we here? What are our values? That's that place to dig back in and go, okay, what purpose, what meaning, what impact do I get to have here? And are we all on the same page with that? And who are we going forward since all this change happened? And how do I fit into that? Those questions of, okay, what are the steps forward? Who does what? What's most important right now? Those key 6 questions we talk about plenty. That's the time to slow down and stop and revisit those. To
Right.
one, build the trust of the team. 2, get alignment of the team and get everyone who's a part of it, because that next phase we got to be aligned for in order to hit the ground running. And so we've got to do the work in the neutral zone of getting on the same page and helping people get to the point where they can be on the same page.
Yeah, and in that getting people to the place where they can join that team on the same page is really about re-enrolling. And for me, re-enrolling is really about checking in with the vision and checking in with the mission. And because it's a merger, or because there's a big change, maybe it's not even a merger, but some of the senior leadership left. Either Starbucks, very good example right now, right here, because Starbucks CEO just got fired. Right?
Wow.
Not Howard. He's one of them that voted to fire the guy, I think. But now we lost, and this is kind of Starbucks places. We lost that culture of the third place, which is home, work, in the third place to gather, and we became much more money driven, and we're losing money.
Yep.
And they've had losses and losses and losses. And I don't know if you have the Starbucks app, but we're getting freaking more deals through Starbucks. So it's good for the consumer that's capitalizing. Get, free drink, free this, and extra stars, and all of these different things to get us to come back. But they're doing that because their culture got damaged under the leadership, and now new leadership is coming in. And so they got to regroup and go, okay, as we're reforming, we have to look at what we were and look at what we're going to be, and really make decisions on what is this new culture going to be, because we can't ever be the old culture. We could try to get back there, but it's got to be realizing what didn't work. We've got to go into, okay, something new, using old culture that worked as a foundation, but then how do we actually move into this next thing? And that takes really going back into the questions of clarity. And I hope for Starbucks benefit that they really do step back and do this and go, okay, why do we exist? Are we just for money? Are we just the drive-through, and we don't really care about the people other than giving them a okay cup of coffee at a fast speed? Or are we really actually interested in something deeper with them? And because I remember in 2007, when I was on my internship, I would drive by Starbucks and it would start my day, and I'd go in and they'd say, "Hey, Terry, how you doing? It's good to see you." And, I'm going into a prison system as a correctional psychologist at this time. And so my first interaction with people is these baristas that really set my day. And I remember that. And now you go into Starbucks and you're like, hey, you know what? There's somebody spilled something. I don't care. Whoa.
Right. Yeah.
We don't have time to get to that. Whoa. Oh. Okay, we're not friends here then. Oh, okay. My friendly reminder that the floor is sticky falls nowhere in where you're at. Okay, so that culture has changed dramatically from the people who I was excited to go see before I start my day in a very stressful environment to now this is the stressful environment.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we actually make that change? How do we actually go, okay, we have transitioned, we've lost our leadership, we have new leadership coming in. What is it going to be like now?
Yep. That's good. Well, and to help leaders to think too, it's that transition, especially even within your customer's mind, isn't always just the people. the Starbucks right by me, they just renovated the whole thing. And instead of this space that had a lot more seating, they now made it so the counter goes across the entire 1/3 of the store. Third of the store is taken up with the counter. And they decreased all the seating to these little round seats that you can sit on. And I'm like, okay, this place is totally uncomfortable. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to sit in this place anymore. And so you just changed the culture and atmosphere of that Starbucks hugely. And so even something like that communicates something about your culture. It communicates what you're representing. And so even those types of changes that could look technical of, oh, we're just expanding the counter so we have more space for all the Uber drivers who are coming in to pick up stuff for people. Well, great. But what you just did is kick out half your audience that are sitting there. And so if that's what you want, hey, great, go for it. But know and think through how exactly am I impacting people? And that's the key piece we're talking about here is how do we impact people and how do we help people through that?
Absolutely.
And I love when you were saying, it struck me as you were talking about that middle ground where we're hitting that alignment piece and we're helping people that re-up again, right? Part of, again, the loss piece, just to look back for 1 second, is if we haven't done that, people get stuck and they don't have any ability to re-up.
Yep.
They don't have the emotional capacity. They don't have the mental capacity. They're just not there. They cannot re-up for the next step. And that's why that matters. Because you want them aligned. You want them to re-up. You want them excited to go forward with you and be a part of the current mission, the current vision, the current values, and run with it. If they're not, you're lost.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting how people are so focused on the speed of change. And Christine and I talk about the bullet train of action and making change fast. But the biggest piece of making change happen fast is to be able to go back and mourn the loss and appreciate it and celebrate what was, maybe the accomplishments, maybe the losses, and put to bed all of that stuff so that you can have that next chapter happening and you are able to then have that level of comfort in the next thing that allows you to make the progress the fastest.
Yep.
And that's that new beginning, I think, is okay, when we have taken the steps in the right way to put all of the worries and upsetness on the table. I would say put it away, but it's really put it on the table, make it known, talk about it, allow it to be aired. And, I do this thing when I'm talking about emotion is like, we have all these pressured emotions, feeling like a victim of powerlessness and despair and embarrassment and shame. And when we actually start to look at them, they'll actually turn into a helium balloon, float away kind of idea, that when we're carrying them around, they're like water balloons, heavy and hard to hold. And they're all over the place. So we get a big chest and stick it right here. We try to walk around with it. But when we pull the emotion out and put it out there, it turns into a helium balloon and floats away. And that's why, and that metaphor is really to help people kind of understand that the more we talk about the emotion that got triggered, the less it bothers us.
Yeah. Yep.
If we talk about the problem that triggered the emotion, the more the emotion bothers us. And so if we're talking about the problem, it gets heavier. But if we're talking about the emotion that got triggered, it gets lighter.
Yep.
And people always tend to talk about the problem and not the experience of the problem. And when we talk about the experience of the problem, which is emotion, we let it go. It turns into a helium balloon. And then we're like, I really don't know why it was bothering me. Well, it was bothering you so you could talk about the emotion and let it go. That's why it bothered you. So we can connect, because we connect through emotion. When we do that enough, it's very easy to have that kind of session. And what happens for a lot of people when they have a gripe session is they actually talk about the problems and they never get to the emotion of how they were affected by it. And so they just gripe and gripe and gripe and gripe and gripe. They never got rid of the emotion. We do the emotional letting kind of idea, let it go. And yes, is embarrassing when you go in one day and think you have a job, and then all of a sudden it totally changed and you're working for a new company now. You might
Mhm.
have still have a job, but you're a different position.
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
uh,
I love that. That's a great
jarring.
example. Yeah,
And so
of the
we
versus
identify
the.
the emotions, we're able to move forward.
Yep. All right, and that release, as you're talking about with the helium in the balloon, allows us to move fast when we step into stage 3. But if we didn't do the good work in stage 1 and 2, we step into stage 3 with that heavy water balloon or even a lead balloon that's just going to continue to slow us and weight us down. And so I love, we often have the conversation around slowing down so you can go fast.
Yep.
Like that, sometimes you got to slow things down so that you can go fast.
Yes.
And but if you don't slow it down to go, you're not going to go fast. You're going to have fits and starts. You're going to go, oh, we're going. Nope, we're not going. Oh, we're going. Nope, we're
Just
not going.
straight up
Oh,
derailed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a constant. You're if you do not deal with stage 1 and 2, you're constantly going to come back to them. You're constantly going to revisit them. If you deal with them well, you take the time in the beginning to deal with them, you can go into stage 3. But if you don't, you're going to constantly keep looping, looping, looping. And so
Yep.
that's the reality of that. Slow down to go fast, because the fastest way through transition is actually taking the steps.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, you just take them over and over and over again.
Yeah. And
And that's the pressure.
it really comes down to being intentionally aware of what's happening with each person. And I, as
Mhm.
the leader, need to be able to lead that conversation and be vulnerable about what I'm experiencing, and then invite other people to do that and have that confrontation, have that conversation, have that, let's get it out on the table. And we
Yep.
realize that people aren't going to be happy because they don't know what to be happy about right now.
Right. Yeah, I like that.
And then when we can talk it all out, we can appreciate where you're coming from. We're probably not going to be able to change the trajectory of what we're going to be doing because, well, in those kinds of situations, leadership goes, new leadership comes in, mergers happening. People don't go, I think I need to do a merger because I want to. Well, the people who are buying the thing might, but usually it's a situation where it needs to happen for the business to continue. And continue to be profitable. So yeah, we're not going to be able to stop it, but we are going to be able to help you through it. And that's
Yep.
really important. And I don't think that's talked enough about.
Well said. Yep. Yep. And the thought that hit me as you're talking is the failure will often get looked back on as, you think of your Starbucks situation. Oh, that person made some wrong decision here or wrong turn here, when the failure might actually be, guess what? I never led through change. And when I never led through change, I lost the people. And now what happens is that leader gets fired. We bring in a new leader and we're in transition again. And if we don't do it right again, we got to get to another leader and we're going to do transition again. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling reality of transition after transition after transition. And to leaders out there, I mean, maybe, and I'll let you think for a second, Terry, of what maybe final thought, advice you'd give to those leaders. But one of the things I would say is we've had a failed view and understanding of leadership of I cast vision and the followers follow. That's not it. We lead people. We don't just lead robots and droids. And so it's not just, hey, I put out the right vision and everyone will follow and everything will go well. No, I lead humans. And humans have all sorts of things that are going on in their emotions and in their lives. And if I don't lead them as such, I'm going to lose them. And we're going to be stuck in this cycle again and again and again. And so understanding people and understanding how to lead people is absolutely vital. Understanding how people walk through change and transition is absolutely vital. So that'd be my advice to leaders. You need to grow and learn in this. You often need a help. You often need a consultant who come with an outside viewpoint that goes, hey, you're missing this, this, and this in this stage. You're doing great on these, but you need a little help over here.
Absolutely.
Those outside eyes can help you see, because guess what? You're in the same position in the transition.
Absolutely. And I think that my thought around this is there's a saying in my 12-step group that says attraction rather than promotion. And the idea is we cannot promote change and tell people how great it's going to be. We have to make it attractive by one, being open, vulnerable, transparent to the
Mm.
level that we can be about where
Yep.
we're at with it, about what our fears are, and invite that to other people. And then as a result, it's going to invite other people and they're going to be attracted to be able to have that same conversation. And at that level, we're going to be able to see change happen much more fluidly and in a much more healthy manner because we're inviting people to move forward rather than telling them they have to.
Mm. Well said. And that fluid, that healthy leads to productive, leads to revenue on the other end, right? I mean, the
Absolutely.
reality of the company, the things that you're accomplishing are going to lead to the success of your business. And so that's the encouragement today. We hope you got a lot out of this. And we look forward to seeing you again back here next week. We appreciate you taking the time with us. And if you need help, reach out to us. Our information will be up on the outro here. But reach on out. We'd love to be a help. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.